Imagine standing in front of a mirror, in a room so quiet, you can hear the high-pitched hum of electricity in the walls. It is 3 a.m. The city outside is dead asleep, draped in a heavy charcoal mist. But you are awake, staring at the face in the glass. It possesses your eyes, your mouth, the faint lines etched by years of habitual expressions. But somewhere, deep in the suffocating silence of the room, a terrifying thought begins to crawl up your spine, cold and sharp. I do not know who this stranger is. We spend our entire lives curating a gallery of acceptable faces. The polite smile for the barista, the confident nod for the colleague, the stoic mask we wear to navigate tragedy. We layer them on, thick as wet plaster, day after day, until the soft skin beneath forgets how to breathe. You can almost smell it, can't you? The stale, dusty scent of a lifelong performance. The metallic taste of words you didn't mean, but spoke anyway, because they were necessary for survival. But here, in the dark, the audience has finally gone home. The applause has faded into a ringing, hollow void, and you are left with the crushing weight of a question that feels like a jagged stone lodged in your chest. When the stage lights cut to black and the performance ends, what actually remains? This is not merely loneliness. This is the ancient, primal horror of the shadow knocking on the door of the persona. It is the moment the script runs out, and you realize you never actually wrote a single line of it. It is tempting to look at that stranger in the mirror and diagnose yourself with a moral sickness. You might call it hypocrisy. You might call it cowardice. You might label yourself an imposter, believing that everyone else is walking around in vibrant, authentic technicolor, while you are the only one trapped in grayscale deceit. But this internal judgment is a devastating error. This fragmentation you feel, this jarring dissonance between the face you show and the soul you hide, is not a sign of spiritual corruption. It is not a defect in your character. It is a masterpiece of evolutionary engineering. Consider the brutal reality your ancestors inhabited for hundreds of thousands of years. In the ancient world, survival was not an individual endeavor. It was a collective negotiation. To be distinct was dangerous, but to be rejected by the tribe was a death sentence, swift and absolute. The harsh winter did not care about your unique individuality. The predator waiting in the tall grass did not care about your authentic self. The only thing that mattered was cohesion. So, your nervous system, brilliant and terrified, learned to curate. It learned to suppress the erratic, the dark, and the strange, in favor of the palatable and the predictable. This is not fakeness. This is your biology loving you enough to keep you alive. You built the persona not to deceive others, but to signal safety to the herd. It is an ancient reflex, etched into your amygdala. Fit in or die. Carl Jung understood this structure not as a malicious lie, but as a necessary organ of the psyche. He argued that the persona is a complicated system of relations between the individual consciousness and society, a compromise. It is a shield designed to protect the tender, chaotic interior from a world that demands order. The tragedy, therefore, is not that you possess a mask. The tragedy is that you have mistaken the mask for the face. You have worn the heavy iron armor of acceptability for so long that the skin underneath has begun to rot from a lack of sunlight, convinced that the armor is the only thing holding you together. This fusion of mask and face is not just a poetic metaphor. It is a structural reality wired into the architecture of your nervous system. To understand why you cannot simply decide to drop the act and be authentic, We must look at the machinery operating beneath the surface of your skin. This is not a stubbornness of spirit. It is a matter of neural electricity taking the path of least resistance. It begins with the amygdala, that almond-shaped cluster of nuclei buried deep within the temporal lobes of your brain. Think of the amygdala as a hyper-vigilant watchman standing in a tall tower, scanning the horizon for smoke. In the modern world, this watchman rarely sees tigers or warring tribes. Instead, it scans for social rejection. When you consider saying what you actually feel, when you think about contradicting the boss, or showing your grief to a stranger, the watchman panics. It perceives this vulnerability as a physical threat, indistinguishable from a predator in the brush. It floods your system with cortisol, ringing the alarm bells of anxiety, urging you to retreat behind the safety of the persona. Your brain prioritizes safety over truth, and the persona is the safest bunker it knows. But the mechanism goes deeper, cementing this behavior through a process called myelination. Every time you repeat a thought or an action, every time you laugh when you aren't amused, or agree when you actually object, a specialized cell called an oligodendrocyte wraps a sheath of myelin around that neural circuit. Visualize this process like paving a road. The first time you acted out a role to please someone, it was like walking through tall grass. It was slow, difficult, and required effort. But as you repeated that behavior day after day, year after year, the myelin wrapped thicker and thicker around those nerves. The tall grass became a dirt path. The dirt path became a paved road. And now, decades later, your persona is a 6-lane superhighway. Signals travel down this highway at lightning speed, effortless and automatic. In contrast, your authentic self, the voice you have suppressed, is now an overgrown, neglected trail in the deep woods. To choose authenticity requires you to step off the smooth, high-speed highway your biology has built and hack your way through the dense jungle of the unknown. It is chemically expensive and metabolically exhausting. Your brain, ever the efficiency expert, resists this. It wants you to stay on the highway. It keeps you in the mask not because it hates who you are, but because the mask is efficient and the highway is paved. You are not fake. You are simply a creature whose biology has become too good at protecting its softest parts. We must go back to the architect who built this fortress. We must return to the time before the concrete hardened, when you were small, permeable, and desperately observant. The persona was not a uniform you were issued at birth. It was a costume you stitched together, patch by patch, in the quiet corners of your childhood home. Maybe you were the child who learned that the atmosphere in the house was fragile, like a soap bubble waiting to burst. Maybe you watched your mother's face tighten when you cried, seeing an exhaustion so deep it frightened you, and you realized your needs were a burden she couldn't carry. Maybe you were the easy one, the low-maintenance one, the one who didn't cause trouble because there was already too much trouble swirling around you. Financial stress, a volatile sibling, or a parent's quiet, simmering depression. Maybe you learned that love was not unconditional, but transactional. You saw that when you were funny, the tension in the room dissolved. If I make them laugh, they won't fight. Or perhaps you saw that when you achieved high grades, you earned a momentary spotlight of approval in an otherwise dim house. If I am perfect, I am safe. I want you to recall a specific moment. It might be a Tuesday evening at the dinner table. The air is thick with things unsaid. You have had a terrible day. You feel a ball of hot, jagged shame in your stomach because a teacher scolded you or a friend betrayed you. You want to open your mouth and let it out. You want to wail. You want to be small and held. But then, you look up. You see your father staring at the wall, his mind 1,000 miles away in a land of worry. You see your mother moving aggressively with the dishes, the clatter of porcelain sounding like gunfire. And in that split second, a voice whispers in the back of your mind, the birth of the persona. Not now, the voice says. Don't add to the noise. Swallow it. So you do. You physically swallow the lump in your throat. You push the tears back into your tear ducts until your head throbs. You put on a smile that doesn't reach your eyes. And you ask, "How was your day?" Instead of telling them about yours. I will be the strong one, you think. I will be the one who doesn't need anything. This was the moment the split occurred. This was the moment you took your true self, the needy, messy, angry, frightened child, and shoved them into the basement, locking the door. In their place, you sent the representative upstairs. The representative was polite. The representative was helpful. The representative was numb. Over the years, this survival strategy became a personality. You became the friend who gives great advice, but never asks for help. You became the employee who says yes to every project while drowning in burnout. You became the partner who is low drama, priding yourself on how little you require while secretly starving for connection. You told yourself this was maturity. You told yourself you were independent. I don't need anyone, you whispered to the mirror. I can handle it. But this wasn't independence. It was a trauma response dressed up as high performance. The tragedy of this strategy is that it worked. It worked too well. You got the praise. You got the promotions. You kept the peace. People love the persona. They love how reliable you are, how consistent, how easy. But late at night, when the house is silent and the emails stop coming, the maybe cascade crashes down on you again. Maybe you feel lonely, even when you are surrounded by people who love you. Maybe you feel like a fraud, terrified that if you slip up, if you show a single crack in the armor, everyone will leave. Maybe you are exhausted, not by the work you do, but by the sheer caloric effort of holding up a shield that weighs 500 pounds. And the deepest pain of all comes from a terrifying realization. They love the mask, but they don't know the person underneath. You have successfully tricked the world into loving a character you created, which means that the real you, the one locked in the basement, remains unloved, unseen, and untouched. You protected yourself from rejection, yes, but in doing so, you also protected yourself from true intimacy. You built a wall to keep the monsters out, only to realize you had walled yourself in. Let us pause the self-criticism for a moment. It is easy to view your persona as a prison, a construct of falsehoods that keeps you isolated. But if we shift the light just a fraction, the image changes entirely. What you have built is not just a mask, it is a high-performance survival suit. The very mechanisms that cause you pain are also the source of your greatest capabilities. Because you spent your childhood walking on eggshells, you learned to feel the vibrations of the floorboards before anyone else noticed a step. You became a master of observation. You developed a PhD in non-verbal communication before you were 10 years old. Today, this manifests as a supernatural ability to read a room. You know when a colleague is upset before they speak a word. You can sense the shifting energy in a negotiation. You are the empath, the old soul, the one people turn to because they feel understood by you without having to explain themselves. This is the archetype of the wounded healer. Your capacity for deep empathy is directly proportional to the depth of the loneliness you endured. You listen so well because you know exactly how it feels not to be heard. However, here lies the paradox. These superpowers were forged in fire. They are military-grade technologies developed for a high-threat environment. But you are no longer in that environment. You are no longer that helpless child trapped in a volatile house. You are an adult with agency, resources, and options. You are walking around with a wartime weapon in a peacetime garden. Imagine a soldier who returns from the front lines, but refuses to take off their body armor. They wear 70 pounds of Kevlar to the grocery store. They scan the park for snipers while their children play on the swings. This soldier is not crazy. They are adapted to a reality that no longer exists. The armor that saved their life in the war is now crushing their spine in the peace. This is what you are doing when you overanalyze a casual text message for 3 hours, looking for hidden anger. This is what you are doing when you people-please a boss who is already satisfied with your work. You are deploying heavy artillery to solve minor diplomatic issues. You are treating a disagreement like a threat to your survival. The anxiety you feel is the friction of using a survival mechanism in a safe environment. The goal, therefore, is not to destroy the persona. That would be destroying the soldier who kept you alive. The goal is simply to teach the soldier that the war is over. You do not need to throw away the weapon, you just need to learn how to holster it. The most common mistake people make when they realize they have been wearing a mask is to declare war on it. You might feel a sudden urge to destroy your ego, to quit your job, to tell everyone the brutal, unvarnished truth, and to burn your life to the ground in the name of authenticity. Please, do not do this. This violent approach is the anti-fix. Attempting to rip off the persona overnight is like tearing a bandage off a wound that hasn't healed yet. It causes shock. Your amygdala, seeing its defenses destroyed, will panic and rebuild the wall twice as high and twice as thick. You cannot hate yourself into a version of yourself that you love. The goal is not amputation, it is integration. Think of your psyche as a kingdom. For years, the persona has been sitting on the throne, acting as the king, making every decision based on keeping the kingdom safe from invasion. But the persona is not a king, it is a general. It is excellent at defense, but it knows nothing of art, joy, intimacy, or peace. The true self, the sovereign, has been locked in the dungeon. We do not want to kill the general. We need the general for the borders. We simply need to gently escort him off the throne and place him at the gate where he belongs, so the sovereign can rule the heart of the kingdom. Your micro step, the low-stakes truth. We will not start with a major confrontation. We will start with a whisper. For the next week, your only task is to practice the low-stakes truth. Identify one interaction per day where the outcome does not matter. Choosing a restaurant for lunch, deciding which movie to watch, or reacting to a piece of news. In this small moment, instead of reflexively deferring to the other person, "I'm fine with whatever," or "that sounds great," pause for 2 seconds. Check in with the sovereign. What do you actually prefer? Then, express it. "Actually, I'm not in the mood for pizza. Can we do Thai instead? To be honest, I didn't love that movie. I'm actually feeling a bit tired today." This seems trivial, but to your nervous system, it is revolutionary. You are proving to your amygdala that you can show a fragment of your true self and not die. You can disagree and not be abandoned. Each time you survive a low-stakes truth, the wire of fear in your brain gets a little looser, and the path to the sovereign gets a little clearer. The ultimate irony of the persona is that it achieves the exact opposite of what it desires. We construct these elaborate masks to secure connection, to ensure we are not abandoned, to make ourselves lovable. Yet, the thicker the mask becomes, the less we are truly touched. We find ourselves at a crowded table, surrounded by laughter and applause, yet starving in the midst of the feast, because the love is being directed at the costume, not the actor beneath it. We live in a world that resembles a grand, tragic masquerade ball. We are billions of souls hiding behind painted smiles, bowing to one another, terrified that if the music stops and the masks come off, we will see only monsters. But Carl Jung reminded us that the goal of life is not perfection, it is wholeness. And you cannot be whole if you are hiding half of yourself in the dark. To drop the mask is the most terrifying act of courage a human being can perform. It is a kind of death, the death of the image, the death of the nice guy, the death of the perfect girl. It is a surrender of the safety you have carefully curated for decades. But it is also the only way to be born. The universe does not require you to be a polished statue, impervious to the elements. Statues are beautiful, but they are cold, and they are stone. The universe requires you to be a living, breathing thing, flawed, permeable, and real. It asks you to risk the rejection of the false self so that you may finally encounter the acceptance of the true self. Do not let your life be a performance for an empty theatre. Do not let your epitaph read that you were a pleasant fiction. Step out from behind the heavy velvet curtain. Let them see the cracks. Let them see the fear. Let them see the glory of your unpolished humanity. Because a suit of armor can survive a war, but it can never feel the warmth of the sun.